Welcome back, everyone. So, today's news is actually a bit more positive than the last videos, but don't worry, it still has been a bit of a dramatic time. Oddly enough, though, we've actually now got some hope for some games, some of which are even big AAA games, which is quite something to say. We also have a new channel. Yes, a new channel, Bellular Clips. It is where you will get quick hits from us on a whole wide range of topics based on what we do on our live show, which is currently very much in a V1, or well, I guess V0 state. There's variety content there now. It is mostly Warcraft, although that will change soon. We do have some news-related discussion up there as well. So, hit up the link and subscribe if you are down for some of that. And with that said, let's go. First up, we've got some more good news about the next Dragon Age. So, in the same time frame as Anthem Next and another project, Gaia, its cancellation, EA were apparently also taking stock of, well, their entire array of development. And to that end, Jason Schreier reports that EA have actually allowed BioWare to make Dragon Age a single-player game, and this is something that is a pivot away from the previously reported multiplayer focus, or at least the multiplayer angle. Let's not beat around the bush here, though. EA basically seem to have found a bit of common sense. They cancelled overly ambitious multiplayer projects, and they now seem to be letting studios actually work in what they specialize in, at least in this case. Now, this news comes hot off the heels of what we covered in yesterday's video, and that was a wave of PR stuff from EA, basically detailing how they're letting studios handle their own games and retain their own creative control. Of course, a lot of that stuff relates to Respawn. Now, for Dragon Age, this essentially means that BioWare should be a lot more free to just keep that game light on the monetization and actually focus on what matters, which is making a good single-player RPG. Unfortunately, though, this stretch of EA oversight and bullshit has botched a few games releases, and that has, of course, done serious damage to the workforce at BioWare. We've heard of bad morale and things like that. There's the likes of Mike Laidlaw, Casey Hudson, and Mark Dara all leaving the company, which does mean that however this Dragon Age will turn out, it won't be, at least in its final stages, guided by some of the series' long-term, well, I mean, literally the series' long-term director, or the studio's usual leads. So it's a different BioWare now, basically, but at least EA are going to let them try. And that's probably a good thing. And speaking of the Clips channel, if you would like to hear our extended discussion of this topic from our Friday hangout, then check out the Clips channel. A subscribe link is down below. Alright, on to our next bit of news. And if that Dragon Age pivot wasn't enough evidence for EA perhaps changing some heart, we've heard yesterday that Battlefield 6 is a serious focus. Now, I did a 30-plus minute video detailing how Battlefield 5 was a humongous disappointment as a long-time Battlefield fan, since Battlefield Vietnam. So, more than anyone, I should be suspicious here. But I'll tell you what's going on. They have delayed the next Need for Speed game by an entire year in order to let Criterion help out with the next Battlefield. Now, I know what you're thinking, and it does kind of look bad. Oh dear, they need to pull other teams to help out. It must be behind. Well, the thing is that apparently not, because according to the Chief Studios Officer, Laura Miele, whatever, we've mentioned her a few times, of course, in the channel, they are doing this because they just don't need a Need for Speed game this year. Basically, thanks to their purchase of Codemasters, they've already got a racing game lined up for this year. And that basically means that they're planning to use the extra resources from Criterion to improve Battlefield 6 and to relieve pressure on a fatigued DICE. So, interesting, and in her words, we're playing to win, we're playing to put a great Battlefield game out in the market. We don't have to necessarily take her at her word either, because the last we heard of this game was in EA's earnings call, and in that earnings call, they said that they are ahead of internal milestones. Now, you could just say that's a load of BS, but the thing is, you're not really allowed to lie to your investors. They would get in serious trouble if they said that, and then it turned out that they were not ahead of their internal milestones. So if they are ahead, and then they're getting a whole bunch more resources, then things could be looking up for the next Battlefield. Maybe they know that they messed up Battlefield 5 so much that they really need to put out a cracker in order to win back the audience. Certainly as a decently cantankerous Battlefield fan, yeah, Battlefield 6 is going to need to be pretty exciting to get me back. So to finish this one off, aside from Laura saying the next one is going to be a love letter to fans, there is also the news that DICE LA are dedicated to the live service elements of this game, and apparently are making good progress on that front. So that could mean that BF6 won't have the content drought that BF5 really struggled with. And overall, it means that BF6 has got 3 development teams working on it simultaneously. But for a change, it seems like that's not a mad rush to the finish. It seems like they actually just want to make it better. I think because they know they need a redemption arc for Battlefield. Okay, next up, while the service is still alive, we should take another opportunity to take a laugh at Stadia, because at the end of last week, Jason Schreier dropped a Bloomberg article that almost reads as a post-mortem of the service and actually reveals some pretty damn juicy details, like behind-the-scenes stuff. Basically, right, Google were insane in how they handled Stadia, and it's kind of worse than we imagined. So, first up, they were actually warned internally about launching in 2019 with a big statement, but they just ignored developers telling them that they needed more beta testing, and they basically needed to evolve the service more before launch. So, yeah, that obviously didn't work. It resulted in a highly publicized launch that missed a whole bunch of the features that they talked up in their own reveal and with very few games. So that's thing number one, not listening to their own team. Second, the money. So under Phil Harrison, the Stadia team were apparently spending tens of millions securing ports of existing games from big publishers. They were basically just throwing millions at the likes of Ubisoft and Take-Two so that they could have Assassin's Creed and Red Dead on Stadia. And that's just for ports. They spent basically an untold amount of money setting up their own internal studios as well, and we know the story there. Google obviously got cold feet and pulled the plug before those studios could actually finish anything. You know, despite them already putting millions and millions into their own games and into third-party games. Very bizarre. According to VGC, although I should say denied by Google officially, this actually included projects that were being planned with, well, Kojima. Yeah, an episodic horror game that was apparently on the cards, as well as something from Yu Suzuki, of course, of Shenmue. Apparently also a Harmonix music game was virtually complete, but might not actually get a Stadia release in the end. And at the center of all this stuff is Phil Harrison, basically running wild and free with Google's checkbook, and according to, what the Bloomberg report is highlighting, he doesn't have the best track record. Or basically, if you've been kicking around for long enough, you may remember him as being heavily involved in 2 of the worst console launches of all time. Or at least for the big ones, the PS3 and the Xbox One. Now, it's hard to say how much influence he had on the direction of those consoles, or, any of the other failures he's been adjacent to, but it does seem like bad luck and bad decision-making follows the man. Between those 2 awful console pushes, Atari continuing to lose millions while he was in charge, and now Stadia, it doesn't look great, I'll say that. By all accounts, though, he did do a great job at PlayStation in the 90s, but I guess almost everything since then has been a bit of a bust. And then, in a final blow for cloud gaming, for now anyway, the guy in charge of Amazon Luna has actually quit to join Unity. That's only 5 months after Luna's announcement while it's still in early alpha testing. Now, there are a number of reasons why the guy could have left, obviously, but many of us are left thinking the same thing, like it's a get out of the sinking ship situation. Maybe they're not particularly hype on Luna versus the likes of xCloud in a world where something like Stadia doesn't do that well. But that said, I actually do think that Amazon could handle it better than Stadia based on their seeming plan to emulate some of the Prime Video model, so that could actually work. But that said, it's Amazon, and they are pretty damn terrible with their own game studios, so it's kind of hard to trust. And now for some publisher drama from a team that seems to continually have it. Frogwares has warned players not to buy their game, The Sinking City, on Steam. And they're claiming that their publisher, Nacon, pirated the game and then tricked Steam into uploading it so that Nacon could then pocket 100% of the money from each sale of this, pirated copy of Frogwares' own game. Now, this all comes a few steps into a crazy legal battle with Frogwares alleging that Nacon owe them €1 million in royalties, and also never gave them milestone payments. That, by the way, is payments that you get at basically different stages of the development process based on your progress, and also that they tried to claim copyright of the game once it was done, which I assume would be in breach of whatever contract they signed. Now, the piracy allegations here are insane, because according to Frogwares, Nacon purchased a copy of the game from Games Planet. They then cracked it. They then edited some parts out, like the Games Planet logo, and they removed advertisements for other Frogware titles, and then they uploaded this cracked version of it to Steam for distribution. Now, on the other hand, Nacon have claimed that this was the only way they could sell the game, after Frogwares took over €10 million from Nacon to finish the game, and then wanted to change the terms of the contract after the fact, and generally were not being cooperative. So that's a bit weird. Now, Nacon are accusing Frogwares of basically playing the victim in their statement, which essentially leaves us in a very messy place, where it is a he said, she said situation, and it's just hard to know what's up. Now, this all comes about 6 months after the sinking city was first pulled from sale after the legal disputes began, and that in turn came almost a year after the two entities started fighting over contract terms and milestone payments back in July 2019. So the only real way for this to come to an end, basically, I think, is the legal system, so we're probably going to have to wait some time. For now, though, there is a lesson here, I guess. Be very careful who you sign a contract with, because somebody has messed up here. Now, the one thing that does enter my mind is that Frogwares seem to be a bit cursed, because this is the second publisher they've had problems with. Focus Home Interactive and Frogwares had a falling out in 2019 over the Sherlock Holmes games, when basically Focus Home delisted the games without providing any notice and without returning control of the IP to the developers first, leaving them with no source and no revenue. So either Frogwares are extremely unfortunate and need to pick better relationships, or maybe they are the common denominator and, well, that might make them the problem. Right now, pretty much impossible to say. And then to finish things up today, well, the most news-deprived fans in the universe have finally got something. They have got leaked Elden Ring footage. In total, there were 4 clips leaked that total about 2 minutes of footage. Now, this is comprised of old, unused trailer footage with some horseback combat, some of which seems to be the intro cutscene with some locations being shown off, and then a boss cutscene. And there's really little to say here beyond it looking like a more ambitious Dark Souls 4 than anything drastically different, which, will be music to some people's ears, disappointment to others who maybe got way too into the hype. Hopefully, though, we're not going to have to wait too long for real news. Bandai Namco have actually trademarked what could be the name of a direct-like presentation called Bandai Namco Next. And the usual journalists with connections are saying that they're ready to drop a trailer at any time. So with there finally being a leaked trailer, maybe that actually is the case. Now, this may not all be perfect news, though, because there are whispers that COVID delays have actually pushed the game's targeted release back to 2022, which, would kind of suck, but what are you gonna do? Shit happens. And speaking of shit happening, the end of today's episode is happening right now. If you want to do something else, you can check out the most recent video we published on this channel, or if you want many clips, including some interesting hardware stuff, extended discussion between me and Matt over some of the news topics we've talked about today, and of course if you're a Warcraft person, then check out Bellular Clips. That will be the place to go. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.